Actress Suzanne Somers passed away this week after a lengthy career as an influencer, author, expert, exercise contraption guru, among many other things. She was known as a staple of the talk show set, the promotion set, an influencer of the ranks of a Kim Kardashian before Kim Kardashian was even born. We're going to take a look right now at how she communicated when she was being a spokesperson for her products. This was appearance not that many years ago on the late Larry King show.
There's ways to stay ageless and live a more fulfilling life in premieres on Lifetime. I'm going to be a guest on it. I'm on soon, right?
Yes, and darling.
I had a great.
And for those of you not familiar with Suzanne Somers, she rose to prominence in the late 1970s as a star of a sitcom that I used to watch, Three's Company, but then was fired because she asked for the same amount of money as her male co-star, and the Hollywood studios said no. That did not end her career, but she no longer was a huge Hollywood star, but rose to fame or used the fame she had to create her own business in many, many different venues. Let's see how she did in promotion.
Great time. My wife came on. It was a lot of fun.
It was. I really enjoyed being on the other side of the chair this time.
So you could say she's someone who comes across as comfortable and relaxed. She's smiling. She doesn't look nervous at all. Her hands were moving.
Well, you did a great job. You do a great job. You're very good at it.
I learned from you.
Okay.
All
Now,
those years.
well, you're doing two different things, right? What's the internet show as opposed to the...
The internet show is 7 minutes long because that's determined by the attention span on the internet.
So the 7 minutes...
So she's quick to laugh. She was very consistent with her brand image. She had bangs and shoulder-length blonde hair from the time she really went to prominence in Hollywood. Her first major movie was a small part in American Graffiti way back in 1973. And then her first big starring sitcom role, Three's Company, later on in the 70s. She maintained the look and image, and somehow it still worked for her, even though she was a woman in her 70s. And it was a look that kept a consistent brand image for her.
The show consists of what?
My whole passion, I don't know how I became this, but it's all health and cutting edge medicine. And it's, I interview doctors, scientists, professionals.
So part of her appeal is she comes across as an every woman. She's not coming across as an expert. She doesn't use big fancy medical language, but she talks about health, fitness, nutrition, things that she cared about passionately. Now, caveat, I do want to recognize a lot of the things she did promote were not recognized by the medical community. And some of the things like the Thigh Master, not a lot of evidence that many people lost weight on their thighs using it. But she became a permanent part of pop culture because of her infomercials, other smaller talk shows she had, and really her ability to constantly get on talk shows to promote whatever the latest was, the latest thing she was promoting.
About subjects that don't get a lot of play on mainstream.
We've talked so much over the years. You broke the breast cancer stuff
With
on
you?
our show,
Right.
yeah. So we go back a long way.
We do.
How did you get into this health thing?
I gained weight. I gained weight around.
She's not afraid to be revealing. A lot of Hollywood stars, celebrities don't want to admit, I gained weight. So she was always very revealing about her health concerns, whether it's breast cancer and gaining weight. And that's part of what made her come across as a very authentic spokesperson. And I think a lot of major influencers, whether it's Gwyneth Paltrow, Kim Kardashian, whether they realize it or not, they saw her as a role model. So very lengthy, successful career. And it's in some ways, again, I think a huge role model for modern influencers, because while she did have her initial break with big Hollywood directors and big TV networks, from the late 1970s when she was fired until she passed away, she basically was her own independent business person. She and her husband had their own little empire, and that is what made her successful. What did you think of Suzanne Somers as a communicator, as a speaker, as a presenter? We're not judging the medical value of some of her books, but as a communicator. I'll take your comments and that and more. Hi, I'm TJ Walker. We are live. This channel is devoted to helping you become the best possible communicator you can be. Every single day, I come to you with new videos, short form, long form, live form, all designed to help you become more successful in life through more confident communication. That's what we're all about. We take your ideas, your thoughts, your chats, your comments, and coming directly to us live. We've got a couple of folks who've joined us. Santiago's with us, Anka's with us, Delphina, and Jeffrey. And I think Delphina was first today, so we're going to say hello. If you do want to turn on your mic, feel free to say hello. And I didn't want to do that. Delphina, if you're with us or if you're just watching us, that's fine. We'll also add Jeffrey. Jeffrey, you and I were speaking earlier today in our live session on Facebook, but I wanted to invite you back and say again, congratulations for being a new student in my Udemy course. Which course are you in, by the way? I forgot if you told me.
Yes, so it's the Train the Trainer course, beginner to master. I'm looking to improve upon my skills. Although I've been doing this for a few years, I never got a real solid foundation. So back to the basics for me.
Okay, well, you're not alone if you feel like you didn't have a really solid foundation, because I've never seen any academic program anywhere in the world, Harvard Business School, whatever, that really taught people advanced skills on how to be a good trainer and how to speak well when conducting a training. Now, there are a lot of different aspects of training, but you're either speaking one-on-one to a small group or to a large group. And if you can't speak in a way that's interesting or engaging, you're not going to be a good trainer, regardless of how good your research is or your methodology. What else are you trying to get out of the course? And where do you feel you're less than great right now as a trainer?
Well, it's hard to say because you don't know what you don't know. But having gone through the training, one thing I think I have to focus on is practicing to ensure that the audience is coming away from the training with, whether it's, three or five, main points. And I reviewed the portion of the course where it was stating you can practice soft skills. There is a way to test it, although I'd always thought differently. But if you do a presentation and you ask the people, so what do you remember from the training? And these are your words. Then if they're not able to name the points, the key points that you stated, then largely you failed. And that's where the learning is, so.
Yes. I'm glad you took that away, because that is one of the key points that I really stress in not only my Train the Trainer course, but any presentation skills course. If people can't tell you after you've spoken what they took away that's going to help them, benefit them, that they're going to act upon, you weren't really successful. You didn't communicate much. So I'm very happy you took that away. What's your long-term goal as a trainer? Are you looking to have your own private training practice? Do you want to continue training at the university? Both? A mix?
So I would say a little bit of both. I do come from a behavioral health background, so I do like to be able to give back to the community. Like I stated, I just was presenting at a conference this past weekend. But ultimately, my life's goal has always to be in the education system. I've taught a few classes here at Broward College. I've taught at some nonprofits, but I really would like to become a tenured professor one day. Still, of course, working in the continuing education side, but I also want to dabble a little bit in the credit side as well. So.
Great. Well, we wish you luck in your venture and getting to all those steps. And I would point out to anyone listening, you may think of yourself as, oh, I'm an engineer, or I'm a lawyer, or I'm a salesman. We live in exciting times where anybody can be a part of the education world. I'm a part of the education world, even though I'm not associated directly with any university or school or college. But anyone these days can educate people through online courses. And you can do it as long as you have a cell phone. You don't really have to spend money. You don't have to go get accreditation. As long as you have some piece of knowledge that could help somebody else, you can be a part of the education world in a way that traditionally those doors were closed. Because I can certainly remember early in my career, occasionally talking to a university, do you want a media training course? I'm qualified. And uh, they looked at me like I was trash because I didn't have a PhD. And it didn't matter the fact that even then I'd already trained CEOs and prominent business leaders and people in different countries. There are certain gatekeepers in the traditional academic world in the way that there aren't on online course platforms. So nothing wrong with you continuing through the traditional world, but I just wanted to toss that out there to people that you might not see yourself primarily as an educator, but anyone can help educate other people in the world these days, thanks to technology and the internet. Well, Jeffrey, we wish you well. Thank you so much, and let us know if we can help you
And I
in
thank
any
you.
way whatsoever.
Yes.
Thanks. Delphina wrote in a comment, and by the way, it's perfectly fine to leave comments and be a part of the chat. You don't have to come on live. Delphina says, I have a question regarding the initial greetings we use when entering a business establishment. I've observed that even a simple hello can influence how people perceive and respond to me based on my tone. Are there any tips on how to tailor my tone and body language so that I'm neither seen as a pushover nor a control freak? So that's a fascinating question. I don't think I've ever had anyone ask that before. And I've been doing this a long enough time that typically any question I hear on any given day is one I've thought about before because I've heard it 20 times. If you're going, and Delphine, if you're with me, type in a particular type of establishment you're talking about because I'm trying to give serious attention to your question. I'm thinking if I went into, say, a high-end men's clothing store, it wouldn't occur to me unless the sales clerk said hello to me first to go out of my way to say hello. Now, it's not that I want to be rude, but I would typically walk in and just start looking at merchandise. If someone said, may I help you? I might say, I'm just looking today, thank you. Or I might say, yes, I really need a bow tie for my tuxedo. It would be one of the other. I think the main thing is what I try to do, frankly, is to treat everybody the same. Be polite, look at people, treat them with respect, whether it's the CEO or the busboy, be polite to people, be respectful, and look people in the eye and go from there. When it comes to someone being a pushover, being perceived as a pushover, don't buy the first thing they suggest. They'll figure out you're not a pushover or a control freak. So perhaps I'm misinterpreting the gist of the question. When you're saying entering a business establishment, do you mean you're entering it because you're now working there? That might be a different thing if you're talking about working with colleagues for the first time. If you don't mind, because it looks like you're still honest, if you don't mind posting a little more context to your question, and we will come back to you, definitely. Let's go to Santiago, who's joining us today. How are you today? And if you want to turn your microphone on. There we go. Whoops, I'm still not hearing you, though. Perhaps you want to turn your mic on and off, or excuse me, off and then on again. And it might not be plugged in. But this is Santiago Gisler. It looks like you're joining us from an embassy. Glad you're with us today.
Does it work now?
Yes, now we
right.
hear you. Good
Great.
audio quality.
Great to see you.
Likewise. So what's on your mind today? What are you doing?
Well, I am getting into the presentation part of communications. I'm a scientific writer. I'm a writer in general and communicate science. But now I'm trying to get into the oral presentation part of communication, and there is a lot of details that I need to improve with my with how I communicate my my knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it
what
is.
What do you think is the single biggest thing you need to improve when it comes to how you communicate as a scientist?
It's to structure my knowledge, to structure the information that I need to convey, and somehow not stumble upon words and stop using filler words, maybe finding my
Okay.
voice as well. Yeah.
And are you speaking in the classroom in an academic environment, or are you speaking to broader audiences or professional audiences?
I've been speaking to broader audiences, specifically researchers. I've been a researcher for 10 plus years, and I have organized an event, a free event for people to come and join to learn about gene editing and the ethical implications of gene editing. Nowadays, I have been more focusing on the writing, and I would like to start podcasting, to start a coaching business in which I help people to communicate scientific knowledge or science in general, or whoever wants to be able to communicate.
Who are your favorite scientific communicators today? I mean, I think back a long time ago, Stephen Jay Gould was considered a fantastic communicator, Carl Sagan in his day, but what modern experts do you recommend or do you really admire as a great communicator who's also a scientist?
That's a good question, and I'm not very good at following specific profiles, and I usually forget names, but I know there is a Dave. But it's usually written communication that I follow. So the presentations, scientific presentations, I don't follow that very much.
Well, that frankly would be one of my recommendations. I mean, if you ask any great writer, any great novelist, who do you read? They're going to rattle off half a dozen novelists. If you ask Paul McCartney or any great musician, who do you listen to? They're going to rattle off 10, 20 musicians they listen to regularly. If you want to be a great scientific communicator, I would recommend you find other scientists who communicate regularly. Who's the head of the Hayden Planetarium? Who you see him on talk shows all the time? I can't believe my mind
Neil
deGrasse Tyson is considered a great communicator and a good scientist as well. So try to cultivate sort of a library of people you respect and can emulate. Here's my challenge always to scientists who come to me for training. They'll say, well, TJ, I'm a scientist. And yeah, I like your idea of telling stories and being interesting and narrowing it, but I'm a scientist. I have to go through all the data. And I always ask them the same question, which is, okay, you're a scientist. What does that mean? It means you believe in evidence. It means you believe in proof. It means you believe in testing. You just gave a presentation where you covered 189 facts, bullet points, and text to this audience. Now, show me the evidence that the way you presented it was effective. They can't do it. So I make the huge distinction between communicating in a classroom versus every other aspect of life. When you're communicating in the classroom, students are writing it down, studying it, reading it, doing background reading, because you have power over their life. You can give them a test next Tuesday. And if they fail the class, they lose their scholarship, they get kicked out of school, they got to go live down by the river in a trailer and eat cheese and be poor. If they pass your test, get an A on the test, get an A for the course, keep their scholarship, graduate with honors, get a high-paid job, and life is great. So in the academic world, you have tremendous pressure that you can apply on your audience to write everything down, read it, memorize it, study it. I found in the real world, professional conferences, symposia, other places, speaking to laypersons, speaking on podcasts, no one else in the real world is writing down everything you or any other scientist says, which means you've got to figure out how to package your messages in a different way to make them not just understandable, but memorable. And the way to do that is narrowing it down to a handful and coming up with interesting, compelling stories and examples and case studies. It really comes down to that.
My challenge right now, if I just may, my challenge right now is that I'm switching topic from the more scientific research into philosophy of science and critical thinking and problem solving. So now I'm getting into a new field where I have to convey a different type of message, less data, more philosophical and maybe more aimed at solving problems in general, more general.
Okay, I can respect that it's different, but I'm here to tell you how you communicate it is exactly the same.
Yeah. No, I agree.
All bad communicators are exactly the same everywhere.
Mm.
Too many data points, too abstract, no stories. Doesn't matter the top. Doesn't matter if their topic is astrophysics. Doesn't matter if it's sex education. They're all bad ones are all the same. All good communicators are the same. They may have stylistic differences as far as how loud they are, whether they curse or something, but they're all the same in that they narrow the messages. They give vivid examples and stories and case studies to make the ideas come alive.
True.
So that's my challenge to you. Figure out how you can do that. Santiago, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for
Are
the
you
pointers.
joining us? Are you in Africa today, or where are you joining us from?
Oh no, sorry. So Ivory Embassy is my company. So
Oh,
it's about
okay.
the Ivory Tower and creating an embassy between the Ivory Tower and the rest of the world.
Gotcha.
But
I
I'm
thought you were in
joining
the
you from.
Ivory.
No,
That's from
sorry
the
about
Ivory
that.
Coast
I
today.
think Google has the same issue with my name.
Okay.
But I'm joining you from Amsterdam, the Netherlands.
Amsterdam. Okay.
Yeah.
Great city. I've enjoyed my couple of times there. All right. Well, thanks so much. And
Thanks a
stay
lot.
tuned. And if you have any other questions, post them and we'll perhaps come back to you. But I have to get to a couple of other folks now.
Sure. Thanks.
Thanks so much. All right. And we have Delphina. And Delphina, forgive me. I was trying to understand your question, but now we can have a conversation. Tell me a little more about your question. And
Okay, can you
how I
hear
can
me?
possibly- Yes.
All right. I was running a test or several tests, and it depends on how I structured my greeting word, whether I said hello, hi there, and when I enter an establishment, simple establishment like a store, I might just walk in and drop the greeting word, or I could walk in and look at the clerk, look in the eyes, and then acknowledge his presence and then say hello. Either I say with upturn or downturn, depending on how I structure my greeting word, I get different treatment. If I'm more upgoing, then I get better treatment. I have more cooperation. If I'm more strict, then I get really non-personal treatment. But if
Now,
I'm really
forgive me
studying,
for interrupting. I want to make sure I'm understanding you clearly. So you're walking into what sort of a store? Would you say a clothing store, a jewelry store?
grocery store, or any
A grocery store. So what do you mean when you say if you're strict? I'm not sure I'm understanding the nuance there.
Here it is. I just enter, say hello, and that's give me this instead of saying nicely hello, and then I say good morning. Would you please give me this and that? And then depending on how accommodating I am, then the salesperson would either ask me for change or give me a little bit more hassle with the whole transaction. Because sometimes I pay cash. So let's say if the total is 1543, they will bother me if I have 43 cents to pay them or anything else. But if I'm really strict and it's like, I'm here to mind my own business and don't bother me. I have the money and I pay. They will not bother me when I'm quite stern with them. So my question is, how can I customize my approach so it's not too funny, but it's according to my goal? Because sometimes I want cooperation. It means I want to be more pleasant, but sometimes I want to be more stern and just be in and out.
And where are you, if you don't mind me asking, what country or what city?
I am in Warsaw, Poland.
Okay, great. Now, I've spent a lot of time in Eastern Europe, but I've not spent any time in Poland. I hear wonderful things about it. I will say this is one thing that There are tremendous cultural differences everywhere in the world with shopping experiences. And there are a tremendous amount of different experiences and treatments based on who people are in terms of their age, their race, their gender. And so I don't have a universal solution that's going to fit for every situation and every time. Everyone has to adapt occasionally. I just spent a month in Paris, and I was very conscious of not being the ugly American and expecting everyone to speak English. So when we sat down, I would make a point to say to the host or the waiter, bonjour, bonsoir, a couple of words of French to let them know, okay, I realize I'm in your country. I should make an effort, as opposed to, well, what do you got to eat here? And just sounding like the typical ugly American. So I was very conscious of trying to be polite. I do think in most cultures, most of the time, doing something showing you're trying to be polite and respectful, there's the natural tendency of human beings to reciprocate, the law of reciprocity. You're being nice to me, I'll be nice to you. You're being respectful to me, I'll be respectful back. But you're absolutely correct. Sometimes people could perceive that as weakness. Again, everyone's coming at it from just their own perspective. My perspective now, and for the last 20 years, I'm an old white man in America. So I go into a store, people treat me a very certain way, and it's different than it is for a lot of other people, and to my benefit. So people tend to be very, very solicitous and respectful of me. I'm not saying they should be, or that's a good thing. I'm just telling you that is the way it is. If you're in your own city, and it's certainly stores you go to on a regular basis, my starting point for you would be, how do you want to behave? Behave the way you want to. And if you feel people aren't being respectful to you, are nice to you, or treating you the way you want, go to another store. Unless there's only one grocery store in your community, chances are that you can go someplace where they treat you nicely. Again, there's different cultural perspectives. Certainly, if I'm going to a restaurant for the first time, or if it's a restaurant in my neighborhood, I make sure to tip more than the custom, which, the custom here in the United States is a 20% tip. I make sure to tip more like 22, 25%, because I want them to be a little nicer and a little happier to see me the next time I show up. Now, that isn't necessarily a solution that works for everyone, and I'm not saying that works for you. So that would be my recommendation. See if you can somehow focus on being polite, friendly. I do think it's human nature. Most people like to be around people who seem like they're in a good mood and happy. And it's been a long time since I've worked in customer service in a store setting, I think since the 1970s. But I know that after a while, people who work with the public all the time get to the point where they can't stand them. They get annoyed with them. And they get an edge. They can be looking for a way to get back at someone. So when you extend just a little bit of positivity, it can often go a long way. Tafina, we wish you the best of luck, and thanks so much for joining us. I'm curious, how did you find us today? Are you one of my students? Did you come across the YouTube channel? How did you find us?
I am one of your students. Communication skills for beginners.
Okay, great. Well, I hope you're getting a lot out of the course.
I am getting a lot.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for joining us, and please feel
My
free to
pleasure.
stay in. And if you want to type in another question, we'd love to hear from you more. And she's in the Communication Skill for Beginners, which is a great course. Sometimes people go through the online courses, they want more, an even more intense experience. So they may reach out to me and have me come spend 2 days with them live. It is possible. It's definitely more expensive than a course on a marketplace. But if that's something you're interested in, you can let me know. We also have group coaching programs. So if you go to highstakespresenter.com, highstakespresenter.com, you can find out more information about our coaching programs, and there's a free online video mini course right there. I will post a link to that in the description once we post this video for on demand. So if you need any help with that, please let me know. I do want to point out that this channel is going through a revamp. I've been on YouTube since 2005, and confession, I've done everything wrong you could possibly do on YouTube. I've started and stopped, been inconsistent, different formats, different subjects. And I finally decided just about 6 weeks ago, I'm going to take YouTube really seriously and try to do best practices. And that involves posting daily. You don't have to post every day, but I'm posting videos every single day. And I am doing long form videos once a week. I'm doing a live video once a week because I'm trying to be as useful as possible to as many people as possible and help the world communicate more effectively. I view my mission as helping people become more successful through more competent communication. And that sounds like a narrow topic, but when you think about it, it's actually huge because it covers train the trainer, as Jeffrey mentioned earlier. It includes public speaking, presentation skills. It includes things like how do you communicate when you walk into a store. It includes things like how to sound more articulate and be understood. So it's actually a huge, huge world that I find a lot of fun and it's exciting. And it even includes things like how you speak to the most important audience in the entire world, yourself. How do you speak to yourself? Because if you tell yourself, I'm not a good communicator, I'm no good at this, I'm not confident, that's going to come through every time you open your mouth. And unfortunately, it's going to keep you from opening your mouth. And the big tragedy for so many people is not that they make a bad speech, it's that they never speak at all. They sit back in the back of the room of the meeting and they don't put forth their ideas, even good ideas. And that, unfortunately, is a tragedy. That destroys more careers, not because they were the CEO and they said something stupid or offended somebody in the media. That does happen. But what destroys far more careers is people never speak up in the first place. So their career never actually advances. They're never seen as a leader. Because in almost any industry, you get to a certain point, if you're not seen as someone who can communicate to groups of people, teams of people, vendors, customers, clients, the media, stakeholders, if you're seen as someone who can just talk to one or two other coworkers, you're never going to advance beyond the first rung or two. And that's a tragedy. Your technical skills may be way up here, but if your ability to communicate your technical skills are down here, you're going to be perceived as being somebody down here, because there's no other way people can make that sense. We're joined by a couple of other people live. Anka, I don't see your camera on, but if you would like to speak, we're happy to hear from you and would love to know what comments you have or questions on any aspect of communication. And you may be just here listening too. I want to make sure we didn't miss any questions. I see we had, Anka writes, are you streaming on YouTube? So yes, we are streaming on YouTube right now. And for those of you just joining us, this is an extension of the live sessions I've been doing really for the last 5 or 6 years on Facebook for my Udemy students. We're now broadening this out to a second segment every week. We have a live session on Facebook at 10 a.m. to 10:30 Eastern time, just for my Udemy students. And then at 10:45, until we've taken the last question, we come live on YouTube, and that's for anyone in the world. So if you've never been a student of mine and you don't ever want to be a student, perfectly okay for you to be right here, right now, and be a part of the conversation about any aspect of personal communication, presentation skills, speaking skills. And I see, Jeffrey did write that he enjoys Neil deGrasse Tyson, who I heard his voice not that long ago because I was in the Hayden Planetarium in New York City with my daughter and wife. So his voice comes on very powerful. And he's got his own podcast, video, and audio. He's also a frequent guest on Bill Maher's Real Time with Bill Maher, one of my favorite shows on HBO. So he is certainly a well-known scientific communicator. I mentioned to you experimentation earlier, and I did want to share with you some of the things I'm up to, because as I mentioned to you, I've not been the best person in the world when it comes to following every best practice for YouTube. I've been around since the beginning, and only in the last 6 weeks have I tried to be serious about best practices. Let me take Annika's off. Best practices with YouTube. So I'll just share with you some of the things I've been experimenting with and get some feedback. And Jeffrey, Santiago, I see you're still with me. Why don't I just use you as a mini focus group? So I'm going to play a video that I believe either just went live in the last half an hour, or I may play one from yesterday. And I want you to be candid and tell me what you like, what you don't like. Okay, so I see one video just went live 28 minutes ago. And I will be honest with you, I've never seen it before. I did my spoken part, but I didn't actually see it. And if there's a glitch in it or it's not properly edited, ultimately that is my responsibility. But let's just take a look and see. So I'm going to share my screen a moment. Oops, I'd been sharing it. I just stopped sharing it. Excuse me. Let me get the right screen back. Sharing the audio and sharing this. So those of you who don't spend a lot of time on YouTube might not be aware, but they, not that long ago, in the last couple of years, said, we got to be more like TikTok. So they actively encouraged what they call short vertical videos, things under 60 seconds that are meant to be consumed on a cell phone. So it's the vertical, it's not the horizontal video. These are incredibly popular because more and more people want to see them with just a very quick, they've got a minute at a bus stop, or they got a minute while they're waiting for an elevator and they want to watch something. So I will share with you the one that just posted. Now, I just posted a few minutes ago. It has 4 views. Too early to tell. The one I posted yesterday has 1,400 views. The one the day before, almost 2,000 views. Surprisingly, the one I did 3 days ago, featuring Steve Jobs, had less than 300 views. So you never really know sometimes when it comes to YouTube and what responds well with the audience and with the algorithms. You would think Steve Jobs would be a bigger pull than me. It may be because I used a very old video of Steve Jobs and people don't even recognize him. But let's take a look at today's video. The answer is you need to do both. And I did not have the audio on, and there's not an easy way of rewinding. So we're going to play it through like 1.5 times so we can see what happened in it.
What people do in real conversation. Their speed changes. Fast, slow, loud, soft. That's how you sound interesting. Should you speak fast or slow? The answer is you need to do both. That's what people do in real conversation. Their speed changes. Fast, slow, loud, soft. That's how you sound interesting. Should you speak fast or slow?
Okay, so I've spotted one thing already that is hugely wrong with this video. And it's entirely my fault because I was not giving proper direction to the editor. So I see a huge blunder with this, but I am interested. So let's just pull in Jeffrey and Santiago. And again, I'm not looking for praise here. I want honest feedback. So again, the format is this was a short. It's designed to be a short. The videos I've done that have been the most successful are often 10 seconds long. So I'm looking to convey one idea. I've got plenty of 19, 20-minute videos. And those of you in my YouTube courses know I can talk a long time. My best-selling courses are 30 hours long. So I'm trying to master this ability to really speak at any length, from 30 hours to, I think the shortest one I've done is 7 seconds long. But Jeffrey, Santiago, either one of you, can you give me some feedback on that video? And I'll tell you what I spotted right away that was wrong with it. But I want to know anything you liked, anything you didn't like.
I can start. I think
Yes,
that
go
the
ahead,
messaging.
Santiago.
I think that the messaging is clear. To keep changing the voice and not using a monotonous tone or a monotonous pace on your while you speak, but trying to create a more dynamic flow. That's a super clear message, and it comes across.
Okay, well, that's good.
Anyone, I think.
And
I
you know,
think,
it's especially relevant to, forgive me for interrupting, but it is
worries.
especially relevant to scientists because they think it's all about the data and they read. And unless you're a professional news anchor, it's virtually impossible to read to people without putting them to sleep because your voice inflections and volume, they all stay flat and it puts people to sleep. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Don't worry. The only comment that I would have, and maybe because I could not see it properly, but the only two comments would be some type of cutting. It was cut a little bit oddly at some point. So, and between two segments, and also maybe the imaging before or during the speech is a little bit, could be out of context, but it could also be that I don't properly see what's going on there. But that's otherwise it's a super clear argument.
Okay, well, thanks for that feedback. Jeffrey, any comments from you?
Yeah, no, so I definitely agree with what Santiago said about the cutting of the content. One of the strategies that I use with some of the videos I develop with Broward College is to have like a 2 second, just face of, the topic of the conversation. And usually we'll use that as like a thumbnail, just so that way, however the person is listening, it gives them an opportunity to turn on the sound. But I will say, you do a great job of, practicing what you preach, which is you gave that inflection in the video, speaking faster and slower. And, I wanted to just kind of tie in a little bit that I learned from Dr. Fisher back when I was over at FIU, which is this is a cognitive psychology concept, you have the semantic properties of any message that you're, providing, which is the content, the meaning behind the words that you're saying. And then you have the physical properties of anything that you're speaking. And the brain processes the two very differently. If someone is presenting a conversation to you, and many of you live listeners and later listeners, if something were to happen in your background, a loud bang or anything like that, it would quickly grab your attention away from what you're listening to, the semantic properties, and your attention would be pulled to that. And it's a great strategy for instructors, presenters, just speakers in general, to use inflection in your voice, to even as well as walking around the room and making examples and things like that to kind of grab the attention of your audience. So I 100% agree with the content, and I love that you practice what you're doing as a demonstration to your audience.
Thanks for those comments. Now let me show you what I've learned really just in the last few weeks. I think I maybe shot that video 3 weeks ago, and then 2 weeks ago I learned one huge blunder I made. Let me go ahead and show you again what's wrong with it. I'll point it out.
The answer is you need to.
My face should not be in the bottom left-hand corner, because the one thing we know with the bottom left-hand corner for a YouTube Shorts is there's lots of text. So that's the dumbest possible place for my face to be. And that's my fault, because when I was recording it I believe I was using StreamYard, I put it down there, and I could have put it someplace else. And I certainly could have asked the editor to put it someplace else. Now let's look at your analysis of the footage of what visually could have been better.
to do both. That's what people do in real conversation. Their speed changes. Fast, slow, loud, soft. That's how you sound interesting. Should you?
Okay, so it was really just images of speakers. I agree, there wasn't anything that was wildly resonating with the message. I want to get your feedback on something else. So I've been perplexed by something. I've had a lot of feedback on shorts lately, and I had one video that got the most criticism. See, that's not the shade. I had one video that had the most criticism for the editing being distracting and jerky and junky. And coincidentally, it was the video that had far and away the most views. So I'm a little bit torn. When I look at it, I'll admit to you, I don't like how it looks. I think it's jerky and distracting and annoying. But ultimately, I am trying to reach a larger worldwide audience. I'm going to show it to you right now. And I apologize if it makes anybody seasick. There's a lot of activity going on. But I'm interested in anyone's theory as to why this one would have basically 20 times as many views around the world as the others. So I'll go ahead and play this.
3 gestures you never want to use when you're giving a speech or presentation. For starters, this. No one has ever done this in real life. It looks ridiculous. Next, don't ever do this. Someone somewhere told a politician, don't ever point. So some of them started doing this with a smushed thumb. It looks ridiculous. No one's ever done that in real life. And finally, don't put your fingers in your mouth. That looks the worst of all. 3 gestures you never.
Okay, so kind of jerky. And I do think there's some good insights there because I do believe that those points are valid. Although someone did point out in the comments, they said, TJ, did you really need to say, don't put your fingers in your mouth? They have a point. That I don't see that happening as often. But I do see people when they make a mistake, they're doing something like, oh, I can't believe I said that. So it's relevant there. So I'm a little bit torn. I mean, there's jerky editing there. There's spinning. It seems a little gimmicky. And I don't want to seem gimmicky, but I've had some videos that I thought, wow, I really give people tremendous substance here, great value, something that will really, really help people, something that when I deliver it in a course, people get a lot of value of and comment on. But I put the same thing on Udemy and it gets 5 views. So I do know that every single platform has to be respected on its own. Every platform is different. Speaking live in front of a large group is very different from a training in front of 5 people. A live training in person is very different from training on Udemy, which took me a long time to learn that. Udemy videos are very different from what works for long YouTube videos. Long YouTube videos are very different from what works for short videos. So I'm in a process now of doing mass experimentation because I don't know any other way of figuring this out. I've been doing 1 short form a day for about 6 weeks. I'm about to go up to 2 a day, not because I'm expecting to get a bigger audience, but because I'm trying to test different formats to figure out what doesn't work, what not to do. So I think ultimately I'll settle down probably to 1 a day. So, but Santiago, Jeffrey, now that I have you as a free sample focus group, tell me what you thought of that. And why do you think that one did 20 times better than any of my other videos? Because it's not one of my favorites, even though I think there's some good information there.
Well, if I may start. So I think it draws the eye. It's as simple as that. When it could be because of the platform, YouTube. When you're scrolling through videos on YouTube, you can hover over one of them, or sometimes, I don't know if you're actually hovering, but then the video starts to play. And the fact that the screen is moving, it's shaking, it gives you that attention grabbing feel as okay, he's saying something that's groundbreaking because the
Hmm.
screen is shaking, and it just really pulls you in. Even if you don't mean to pay attention to the video, your eyes are still going to look back at it. And it's just like with the hand gestures that I'm using, it kind of pulls your attention. I think it was very similar to that. So I think that might
Hmm.
be the reason people are scrolling through, they see that movement and they're like, oh, let me click on this. I'm curious.
Hmm.
So
Okay. Well, thanks for that insight. Santiago, any insights?
I agree. I think it depends also on the context, but I think it's a colorful video, and I could not see the title, but it might be. I saw some transform, active verbs, and it might have been also. It might have also changed the perception of that video. I
Hmm.
also I also want to say that something that I learned is to develop a type of love-hate relationship with your old material. So in a way, I think that you should hate or cringe when you watch or read your old material, because it means that you have developed. So if there is if you don't have any, if you feel that, well, this is the best I've ever done on old material, then you have maybe not developed so much. So in a way, it's a positive thing. And just another detail is that if it was, and maybe I misunderstood this part, but if it was one of your most popular videos, it's normal that you receive more criticism or
Hmm.
critique to these videos because of the
That's a
proportion.
fair point. It's getting more
Yeah.
reaction.
Yeah.
And that is one of the things, for better or worse, with all social media is the stronger the reaction you get. I mean, that's one reason why we see that the rise of so many, hate-filled extremists and demagogues is they get more attention.
Yeah.
If you post a review of something saying it was pretty good, I enjoyed it, it was very nice, pleasant experience, no one's going to click on it, review it, share it. If you say this is the absolute worst, most despicable thing ever, the creators should be imprisoned and murdered, you say stuff like that, that generates a lot of attention and clicks and shares. And I don't really want to be a part of something that just demagoguery. But your point is well taken that whatever your most popular video is probably going to get the most criticism because it just has a lot more people. And it does remind me of, you look at Amazon, for example. I don't care who your favorite author is, what your favorite book is. If you go to Amazon, type in an author you think wrote the most brilliant book ever, and it was a huge bestseller. Invariably, what you will find is it does not have a 5.0 rating. It's going to have a 4.5 rating. Most people thought it was great. But if there's 10,000 reviews, there's going to be 100 or so one-star reviews saying this is the worst book ever. It's wildly overrated. So if you're not getting criticism, that's typically a problem. You're not doing anything that generates strong feeling or getting attention. So don't shy away from criticism. Don't necessarily stop doing something just because it's generating criticism, which I normally buy into that. Where I'm torn is, to me, it's a little too much spinning and just editing for editing's sake, too. That does seem distracting. So I don't want to completely ignore the criticism. By the way, I see our colleague Barb is with us. If you want to add in anything on that, just can't come on in and say hello. I know you're doing other things too.
Well, I was listening because this shorts issue is a big deal with me. And so what I did immediately is I went to the your shorts tab and I started taking screenshots. Oh my gosh. Did I? And you're in Sean's course, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, yesterday I saw a YouTube video by a YouTuber that I have been subscribed to for maybe 9 years or so, ever since she started. And it was titled Goodbye. And she had 315,000 subscribers. And she spoke about shorts and about, the pressures that YouTubers who are publishing, how that's changed over time. And she is just now starting a brand new YouTube channel. And my husband doesn't watch any of this stuff regularly. And I called him over and I said, you got to watch this with me, watch her goodbye story. And he was totally drawn into it. What Santiago and Jeffrey pointed out about why they anticipated that your short got so much attention, I totally resonated with that. But what is happening, I think we're going to see over this next 90 days a big change, because YouTubers that are out there who've been doing this a long time, I noticed that they are changing. And it's because there's too much noise. And I think that when you do it, as I've seen in these screenshots, I thought I'm going to put those in our event for next week, to kind of let everybody know, hey, TJ's wanting your feedback too. But as I saw the lineup there and what was getting the most views, and Santiago and Jeffrey are right on, because they are short. They are, when we go over there, they're grabbing our attention. But the commentary, and just like you say in your videos, well, don't start it, and say, hey, I'm TJ Walker and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. It's just get in there with your message. And I think the shorts are designed for that. But everybody, all the seasoned YouTubers are like, well, we're all into shorts now. But what it did to us who are viewers is that it sends the notifications, because you're doing that every day. It's sending the notifications to us much more. And so then I looked
I apologize. Can I get a clarification there? Because when I go into my control panel and the analytics, it specifically says no notifications were sent for this video because we do not send notifications for shorts. And
you
yet I've had other
gotta be
people tell me,
yeah, they are
literally says
definitely.
that.
Oh my gosh.
So are you getting a notification for every one of my shorts?
Absolutely. And I was like, all of a sudden I had these TJ Walkers and I go, oh my gosh, I'm sitting here with my phone and I've got 10 TJ Walker things coming up there. And I'm going,
as my wife would say, too much TJ.
Yeah, right. Thank you to her. But that is happening. And so whenever you see that happening a lot, and then you see seasoned YouTubers that, with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of subscribers out there talking about it, it's like, okay, YouTube, you told us to do shorts. This is what we should do. But it is sending off the notifications. So I'm thinking that what they did something recently, because I didn't make any changes, is they must have turned the notifications on. And they told us at first they were not sending notifications. And now, as part of their testing, they're on. But it's, for what's happening to us today, I think it's a good introduction. But I just have to go back to what Santiago and Jeffrey said. I mean, that's really the eye-catching to draw us in. That's important, and that's what did it.
I want to do a contrast in a moment. I want to show you my favorite video, what I think is the best, and one I thought would have done the best, and it was the worst performing video of the week. But first, I was remiss, because one of our viewers and colleagues, Gaith, wrote in, says, if I got a question, how can I make myself talk more confidently about topics I know little about, like interviewers or broadcasters? So my first challenge for you would be, how often do you have to speak about something you know nothing about? Typically, when you're asked to speak, whether it's a business, school, a job interview, you're talking about what you know about, and it's always going to be easier. Now, if you are going to be a broadcaster, and let's say you're podcasting someone and it's an author, well, read their book, and that way you'll know about it. Now, famously, Larry King, whom we showed at the beginning of this broadcast, would always brag about the fact that he never read a book of any of his guests. He said, I want to come in with the same knowledge level of my audience. So I'm going to start off with a simple question. What's the book about? It worked for him as a broadcaster for about 60 years. He was quite successful. So you can try to take the approach of being a surrogate for the audience and saying, what would my average audience member ask this person out of curiosity? If you're curious and you really listen, you can come across well. Being a good listener will make you be perceived as a good interviewer and just an interesting person to be around. So I would give that a try. Okay, I want to get one last reaction because we're at the end of our first hour, but I want to spend just a minute here and get your reaction to something. This is a video that I showed a little bit of, I believe, in 1 or 2 weeks ago live session, which may even be why they didn't give it a lot of attention. But it was structurally a much harder video to make than the one I just showed you. And it got, 90% fewer views that are not 90%, like 95% fewer views than the one I showed you a moment ago. But I think it's much more substantively better. Take a look. Here are the elements you need in every successful story.
But I called up Bill Hewlett when I was 12 years old, and he lived in Palo Alto. His number was still in the phone book. And he answered the phone himself. He said, yes. I said, hi, I'm Steve Jobs. I'm 12 years old. I'm a student in high school, and I want to build a frequency counter. And I was wondering if you had any spare parts I could have. And he laughed, and he gave me the spare parts to build this frequency counter, and he gave me a job that summer in Hewlett-Packard, working on the assembly line, putting nuts and bolts together on frequency counters. He got me a job in the place that built them. And I was in heaven. And I've never found anyone who said no or hung up the phone when I called. I just asked. And when people ask me, I try to be as responsive, to pay that debt of gratitude back. Most people never pick up the phone and call. Most people never ask. And that's what separates sometimes the people that do things from the people that just dream about them.
Here are the elements you need in every successful story.
So to me, that video was 1,000 times better than the one that had 1,900% higher views, because it had a celebrity people respect as a great communicator. It had a lot of very detailed analysis. It had analysis that was directly translatable to anyone watching. It took me a lot of time to make this because I had to sift through it and think about it and exact cuts. And yet, my worst performing video of the week, maybe of the last month. So let's just do a quick round robin in our remaining moment here. And just tell me, again, I'm not looking for praise. Tell me what you thought of that. Any hints as to why it performed so poorly? And excuse me, am I pronouncing your name correctly? Is it Jeffrey or Joffrey?
It's Jeffrey. And
Jeffrey, okay.
And that's fine. And so I did want to start off and say, I think maybe the main issue there is our audiences often have a shorter attention span when it comes to these things. You may be scrolling through YouTube and you're looking at various different topics. So when they initially get into the video, they're hearing you, but they're not really hearing you, you know? And that's okay, because that's going to be the case for all of the videos. I would just suggest taking the text that's at the top, which was, initially you had it, I think it was in green and white, and it was giving you, okay, this is the main idea of this video. And I would have that flash above and then go off to the side as like a call out type situation. And then as you get to each point, he's going through the whole list of story and everything, then you have each one come under that topic
Building
as
it.
like as like a
build, yeah.
numerical. And that helps them to structure it in their mind, so that way they'll, at the end of the video, they'll get that snapshot, they'll understand, and then they'll go back and watch it again to say, okay, I want to make sure I covered all of those lines. So
Yeah. Good point. Santiago?
I'm curious about how do you say the audience values that you get, the number of audience, if it's based on how many that have completed the video or how many that click on the video? Because if it's only the clicking, then it must have to do with the thumbnail and the title of it.
So YouTube actually tells you what percentage of the video. I can actually check in the YouTube Studio, the analytics, and that will tell us exactly how it did. But again, you're right. It wasn't as short as the one that did really well, but it was still, I mean, it was under 60 seconds. It was not a particularly long-winded piece of content. Let me just pull it up and see if I can find it right here. And I can give you the exact seconds, because that is one thing fascinating about dealing with anything with YouTube is you really have great analytics. I mean, they just give you thousands of pieces of information. So the average, so this one was, I think, my longest short. You know, the maximum you can be is 60 seconds. This was 56 seconds, which is a lot longer than mine are typically, but there are a number of wildly successful YouTube Shorts creators who have found that 55-second mark really works well for them. So I can't blame it just on the length. Now, my average view duration was 36 seconds. So the average percentage viewed was 65.2%. But again, there were only 296 views.
I definitely think that ties back to that, you know, by the time they got halfway through the video, they kind of got lost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Steve Jobs is also telling a little bit of an and then story, and it might also be the reason why people lose the thread after a while, I guess. But otherwise, for the thumbnail and the title of the video, maybe it's idea to have. I see that many of these clips that have a lot of viewers also have contrasting colors and also powerful verbs, and includes the word you and person.
Well, I see right now I have yellow. You know, the graphic is horrible because there's yellow on a beige. So that part was awful. The shorts are a little different. They don't let you upload a thumbnail the way they do for a long one. If you upload your video on a cell phone, they then let you pick the frame of your video that serves as the thumbnail. But I don't upload my own videos because I'm a nincompoop, I guess, for back of a more scientific term. So I have staff, they do it through a remote laptop. And I think we lose that option of picking the image we want. So I've got to figure out some solution for that. Hey, Barb, we're going to give you the final word. We have to go in 60 seconds, but I want to give Barb the final word. And thanks so much to Santiago and Jeffrey for joining us today. Barb?
Well, my final word is this has just been a great live. And Santiago, that was right on again. I just think you guys, both of you and Jeffrey, are jewels. This was a surprise to me, but I'm telling you, it was a gift, because every week we never know what to expect. And I feel like you were right on with your commentary. And this was a joy to watch today. And I'm actually excited about next week now.
Great. Well, Barb, thank you. And thanks for all you do. Santiago, Jeffrey, Moss, Delphina, everyone who joined us live today. I want to say thank you. If you're watching this on demand and you have a question, you can post the question right here. I will answer it in a text format and may very well end up answering it live in next week's live session. So mark your calendars. We come to you live every single week right here, 10:45 Eastern Time, New York City time, on Thursdays, and we go for about an hour. So we'll answer any of your questions and all of your questions. If you have a moment now, take a look at the video linked to this. You can't see it in the live one, but by the time people see this on demand, there'll be a video link of last week's live session, and you can check that out. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.